Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Good
Rabbi.
morning.
We're learning Mishna Gittin, Parak Zayin, Chapter 7, Mishnah 4. Today's Mishnah is sponsored by the Garland children in memory of Zecher Nishmas, their uncle, Chaim Gavriel ben Moshe Nachum, in the Shamar Shanav and Aliyah.
Amen.
Okay, so a little introduction. We learned in the previous Mishnah that if a husband says, "This is your get from today if I die," and he died, the couple is considered divorced from the time that the get was given. Remember that? Okay. Now, the Mishnah now discusses the law that applies to this couple between the time the get is given and the time he dies. And if you think about it, from the time that he gives the get until the time that he dies, they can become divorced. Maybe yeah, maybe not. Because it all depends on eventually when he dies, retroactively, she will be divorced. But until that time, you don't know yet. So now, what happens to them? So the Mishnah says, "Lo tisyachad imay ela b'fnei edim." She should not go into seclusion with him unless it's in front of witnesses. Meaning they cannot be alone. They cannot be alone. They have to be in the presence of someone. As the commentaries say, you don't need witnesses. You just need somebody there. The point is that we don't want them in seclusion, alone, because then there's a concern that they're going to be intimate. Now, what's the problem if they're going to be intimate? What's the problem? I mean, either they're married or they're not married. But the issue is that clearly that if they're not married, they're not supposed to be intimate. So the concern is that if they decide to be intimate, meaning let's say, when he dies, retroactively, it will be considered from the time that she received the get that they were divorced. So that means if they were intimate at a marriage. And we're concerned that what they may do in order to make their act of intimacy permitted is that they're going to decide that with this act of intimacy, they're remarrying. We know that Kedushin, the first stage of marriage, can be made with an act of intimacy. That's not what we do anymore. We do it with giving her something, but it can be done that way. So our concern is that if they're going to be intimate during this period of time, what's going to happen is we're concerned that they're going to have in mind to remarry each other, to remarry with this act, and then she'll need another get. She'll need another get. Because the old get was okay. The old get divorced them, retroactively, but now they made another kedushin. They made another marriage, and if they made another marriage, they're going to need a new get. And my understanding is, and the concern is that just may not happen because of the fact that nobody knows what's really going on, other than them. So therefore, we say that there is no being in seclusion unless it's in front of people, or even, as we said, it can even be one person. Okay, now, and the Mishnah says this one person that they can be in seclusion in their presence is a afilu shivcha, even a Canaanite slave or a female Canaanite slave. Even though clearly they are considered on they're considered on a lower status. But they're still not going to go ahead and be intimate in front of these people. Now, however, chutz mishivchasa, the only exception of a maidservant that would not help for this is her own maidservant. Because she feels comfortable with her female slave. Certain comfort there, a certain closeness there. And in that situation, because of the fact that she has this comfort, she may not be embarrassed to be intimate with her husband in front of this shivcha, and there in front of this maidservant, and therefore the maidservant's presence would not help. Okay, so during this period of time, we say that she should not be in seclusion with him. But now the Mishnah asks another question, and that question is Mahi ba'is and hayamim. What status does she have during those days? Now, here the issue is, I really kind of jumped the gun a little bit in the beginning when I said this, but again, the issue here is that if he dies, she's retroactively divorced. So let's say during this period of time, she were to be intimate with another man. What would that be considered adultery? Well, you might say maybe not, because if retroactively they were divorced, then they weren't married, so there's no adultery. So this is the question. The question is mahi ba'isen hayamim. So again, if a husband made the get effective from the last one second, I'm making a mistake. I'm sorry. In the case that we had, which is he tells her that if I die, the get is a get retroactively from the time that I gave it to you. So at that point of time, if he dies, retroactively the get works, and what happens? She was divorced, and therefore was she to have with someone during that period of time? No adultery. She was divorced. So when the Mishnah now asks Mahi ba'isen hayamim, we're actually talking about a new case. We're not talking about the case where he says, if I die, you're divorced from today. Retroactively, you're divorced. But rather, the case is the following. The husband gave her a get and told her this. This is your get from the time that I am still alive if I die. Which means to say that the get takes effect the last moment of his life. He's not saying it's a get an effect from the time I gave it to you, from today, from now, when I gave it to you. He says the get takes effect the moment before I die, meaning while I'm still alive.
He post-states this.
Not whatever you want to call it. But the point is that the get's going into effect. You can't post-date it because you don't know what day you're going to die. Okay, so but the point is that he is saying that the get takes effect the moment before he dies. So he's still alive. He's still alive when it takes effect. He's not taking effect after he's dead. It's while he was alive. Okay? So therefore, the Mishnah says, all right, so what happens in that state? What happens at that point of time? What happens in that situation? So Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Ka'eshes Ish L'chol Devareha, she's considered like a married woman for all matters. Rabbi Yosi says, Megareshes made a Megareshes. We have a question whether she is divorced or not. Okay, so now we have to pay attention to this. This is not an easy concept to fully understand. So Rabbi Yosi, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, Shleikaneshes Ish is like a married woman for all matters. Let me read you how they explain it. She's considered a married woman with regard to all matters, since the get does not take effect until just before the husband dies. Therefore, she cohabits with another man during this time. They're guilty of adultery. Meaning, you have this period of time between he gave her the get and he tells her the get takes effect right before he dies. Okay? Now, they committed, she now was intimate with a man on a certain day. Right? Did the husband die the next minute? The husband didn't die the next minute. The husband's still alive and kicking. Right? He's still alive. That means that means they're still married. That means based on the fact that he's still alive and kicking, right? That means the get never took effect. If the get never took effect, she committed adultery. But Rabbi Yosi says no. He says Megureshes ve'ena Megureshes. We have a doubt whether she's divorced or not. Now let me explain. Let me read to you how they explained it here. She's divorced or not divorced. It is unclear if she is divorced or not. This is because at any given moment, it is possible that the husband will die a moment from now. This would make the get effective now. Thus, if she cohabits with another man, they're guilty only of possible adultery, not definite adultery, since it is not definite at the moment they sin that she is really a married woman or not. Although when the moment passes and he does not die, it becomes clear that she was married at the time they sinned, right? Rabbi Yosi maintains it does not change the legal status of the previous moment. A person's status at any given time is based only on what can be known at that time. The future cannot retroactively determine the legal status of the past. Since at any given moment there was no way of knowing what will happen later, her status in the present always remains one of doubt. You get that? The point is that any moment could be that last moment before he dies, because we don't know when he's going to die. So at that moment when they sinned, when they were intimate, at that moment, do we know if she's married or not? We don't know. At that moment, we don't know. Because is he going to die the next second or not? We don't know.
And she doesn't know either.
Nobody knows. So the point is that now, okay, so at that point of time, we don't know what she is. But they'll tell me, wait a minute, but a second later, when the guy's still alive, I will know retroactively what her status was. Says Rabbi Yossi, that doesn't help. When you want to know her status, you want to know if she considered a married woman or not, you have to work with the status at the time. At the time when she sinned, what was she? We don't know. And if at that point of time we don't know, that is her status. That is what we see her status at that point of time. So at that point of time when she cohabited with the other man, was she married? We don't know. If we don't know, we can't do anything. Now, the point here is like this. Now there is a very important concept here. There is a concept known as, or there's a question of Ein Bereira or Yesh Bereira, which means, is there retroactive determination or not?
Say that again.
Is there retroactive determination or not? That is, a future event cannot be used to determine definitely the legal status of something in the present. You get that? Read it again. A future event cannot be used to determine definitely the legal status of something in the present. Therefore, again, if you hold, again, if you were to hold, right? Okay, therefore, if they sin deliberately, they cannot be executed, since their status at the time of the sin had not yet changed, and is therefore not clear they did anything that is punishable by death. And if they sinned unintentionally, they do not bring a chatas, but an asham tali instead, the offering brought by someone who is unsure whether he committed a sin for which he needs to bring a chatas. Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, does allow her status to be retroactively determined based on the future events, yesh breira. Thus, if the husband does not die until sometime later, she's considered fully married until a moment before his death. So if you hold yesh breira, a later event can determine retroactively the status. So then we say, like Rabbi Yehuda, the guy died later. Now we know retroactively she was married then. So if she was intimate with the man deliberately, she could be liable to capital punishment. If they did it unintentionally, they didn't know, whatever they didn't know he was married, she was married. The guy didn't know she was married or whatever. She didn't know it's forbidden to do. At the end of the day, then you bring a chatas, a sin offering. But according to Rabbi Yossi, where it's a suffix, it's a doubt, we don't know what the status is, and we cannot determine retroactively what her status was then, because that's not how things work. Later events can't determine your present status. So your present status is suffix, doubt. So what happens when you're in a doubt whether she sinned or not? Then you bring something called an asham tali, a guilt offering in doubt. You don't know, did you sin or not? It's not like I sinned but it was unintentional or sinned and deliberate. You don't know if you sinned. And when you sin with something that carries a punishment of death, and you don't know if you did that sin or not, you bring an asham tali. So that's going to be the practical difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Now, what is interesting to note, which they're giving us a heads up, the dispute between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda applies only to conditions that are not within a person's power to fulfill necessarily. However, a condition that a person makes that is up to him or her to fulfill, and is within his or her power to fulfill, can determine the validity of a get retroactively, as we will see in the rest of this chapter. So, it's not like nothing can determine something retroactively. But if you're talking about something that you can do, something within your power, that can determine. But something like now, where it's an event that tells us, so what was her status, meaning his death, which we don't know when it's going to be. So then the point is, that's when we have this argument of yesh breira or not. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.